Hello, it's Malin again, and I guess I just want to start by saying that I've been quite inconsistent with these uploads and with doing this YouTube channel. I guess with like a few things in my life, I kind of get into this rhythm of doing things a lot and continue doing things and getting really into it, and then all of a sudden I just kind of stop. I don't see much point to it. I either like try to do too much and burn myself out, or I just kind of don't see much point to doing things anymore. And I guess I've realized like that's kind of been an inhibiting factor for me in my life. I'll talk about that more in another video, but this video I just wanted to talk about my experience after being in Bali for a week. And to give you context, like before that, you know, I've been to Fiji for about 10 days, I think, with my family. It would have been about 10 years ago now, when I was about 12 or 11, I think. And you know, that was a nice experience. The people over there were really nice, and you know, with your family you feel quite safe. You know, you've got people that you know that's with you. But also, I went to France and did an exchange for 2 months when I was 16, and that was like a really big experience for me. That was really eye-opening. I lived with a family over there, and that was a really tough experience for me, honestly, because I was so introverted, so in my shell, and I just found it so hard to get through, but eventually I did, and you know, I was a lot better for it. So anyway, what kind of drove me to go to Bali, and you know, why did I only go for a week? You know, the past month or so, I'd say, I was kind of just struggling, you know, just had like a really kind of bad month. You know, I was coming off of this period of working at like this really strong workout kind of rhythm for like several months, I think about 2.5. After I'd been sick, you know, I was getting back into the rhythm of doing stuff and feeling quite good in my life, but then I tried to do too much. You know, I added soccer on top of it, and I just realized like soccer takes such like a nervous system kind of drain from you, and I wasn't able to get up as early. I wasn't as motivated to do things just because I felt so drained after playing soccer. And I don't know, that could just be a me thing, like doing that much high intensity kind of stuff, maybe without training, without preparing for it, also made my nervous system just kind of run down. And I did play a game of soccer last night, so I am kind of still in that rundown state, so I'm not feeling 100% anyway. But another thing that kind of made me reflect and why I created this video, why I'm doing this video, is just that I think it's important to kind of document experiences before I go into it. And you know, like this, I kind of was doing this, I started this because I wanted to kind of explore things with YouTube. I wanted to see what it was like. It was like a fear thing, like something that I had done in the past but was scared of doing again. And then, you know, I kind of got into it and I enjoyed it, and then I did a lot of it. And then I kind of was trying to make content too much like other people, like these kind of, I guess, more self-improvement kind of really thought out kind of things, because that's what other people were doing, that's what other people were getting more views from. And then I kind of realized like recently I realized like that's not really what I want. Like what I wanted was just to be just this guy kind of having these conversations like the ones that I wish that I had watched when I was younger, with what I was actually looking for, rather than these kind of false answers, you know, this kind of one system set way, rather than someone just talking about their experiences and what they've been through, you know, because I think that can be beneficial and that can make you reflect on your own a bit more, rather than saying like, oh, you have to do this morning routine, or, you know, this is the best way, this is the scientifically proven method. And we're not, like, a scientific method is just something on a group of people that has been like the biggest impact overall. Like, it didn't work for everybody, it was just people had that kind of impact. Anyway, I'm going off topic and kind of ranting, so I'll get back to, so basically I just decided to, you know, my mum owns like a cafe and I work there, and it was going to be closed for 2 weeks, and she was going away and I didn't really want to go away to where she was going, so I just kind of decided I'd like to go to Bali by myself. And the reason I chose Bali was because I wanted to go and do something different, and I chose to do a Kali martial arts because it was something that I had looked at before and thought would be really interesting, because it's like a double stick kind of method, which I kind of love, swinging around things like that. But then it's also like a bit of boxing and a bit of grappling stuff as well, which is kind of cool. And I've done taekwondo, and it's really satisfying just to hit something. So I'll start with that. Like I went over there and I did training. It was about 2 times a day, and the course was just for a week. So I was just like, not even a week. So I was just like, oh, I'll just stay there for that time and then come back. At least I've gone there and experienced it. And I think for me, I can experience things, or maybe I don't, but I felt like I experienced quite a lot of it in a week. And I went by myself, and it would have been nice to kind of have a friend there to, have someone to share the experiences with, and to have like someone that's like, oh, I want to go to this place, and then be like, oh yeah, cool, like why don't we try and go there, and then go to these things that I wouldn't normally go to. But I think for me, it was kind of nice to go alone, because I felt like I needed to be alone, but also because I needed to see how I would react to things rather than just following along with what people would do, which is something that I'm also prone to doing. And so I guess I just noticed, like, I feel kind of awkward going into a new environment, going into a new kind of space. But in Bali, at the start I felt kind of anxious and worried, like when I got there, and then I got like the first kind of taxi ride. I'd been told by someone that I work with to use Grab, which is this app, which is basically like Uber in Bali. And I was trying to get that ready, but then there were so many people like, oh, taxi, you come with us. So eventually I just went with one of those guys. And if someone ever asks you to like go in their car or like go for a ride with them, and they want you to pay cash, they're gonna charge you more. Those bastards, they're gonna try and get more money out of you. Like, of course they would, like, it's just it's just kind of their way. It's like, oh, there's a tourist, we can kind of get a bit more money out of this, because they weren't getting a whole heap of money through like the app. I think it was about maybe somewhere between 50,000 to 100,000 in Balinese rupee, Indonesian rupee. And in Australia on the app, that was about, it'd be like a couple dollars, or like $5 or whatever. And that was just like completely crazy, because everything in Australia is like really expensive. Like, you could get a meal for like under $10, like a whole meal. And that was just like insane for me. And so yeah, so I basically kind of got ripped off by this guy, sort of, whatever. Like, I learnt my lesson from doing that. Yeah. And then, but I kind of felt welcome there. I was kind of like anxious. I was like, is he going to take me to the right spot? Does he know where he's going? But I just learned that those people are actually nice. Like, the majority of them are actually really kind, and are going to do what's, like, they're going to be nice to you. They're not going to, like, even though he kind of ripped me off, he was caring. He's like, oh, did you want to get a coffee? Did you want some food before we go, or whatever? And then on my way back from there, going with a different guy, he's like, oh yeah, do you smoke? And then he's like, oh, you want a cigarette? And so like, we both just like, he didn't charge me for it or anything. I just paid for the ride, and it wasn't very much for the through the app. But then we just like smoked a cigarette on the way there, and it was kind of like just weird. But like, for them, smoking is kind of like their thing, because it's cheap, and like I didn't see them drinking too much alcohol. And in terms of processed food, they had it there, and a lot of their food is kind of fried and stuff, like the warongs at the kind of just everywhere. They had just kind of fried food and stuff, but none of them were obese. I didn't see any obese or overweight Balinese people. like none, and that was kind of shocking. But you know, all of them smoked, and that was kind of their way of, I guess that was kind of their vice, their society's kind of vice. And you know, in Australia, just like coming back from there, you know, being in the sun, I think had an impact. You know, it felt so much nicer, felt so much more kind of welcoming. And then the people were really nice and friendly and like kind of caring, and you know, just like kind of happy and smiling, and you know, you just like look at them and they just like smile and wave at you and you just smile back. And you get that in some parts of Australia, like especially in kind of like the country town that I live in, but it's not quite the same. And I remember just coming back and into Melbourne, and I just felt so like disjointed from this culture, you know, that I'd grown up in. I was like, this is a place where I've grown up around like this kind of Australian society. And I just looked at it and I was just like, oh. I just felt like the weight of it and the kind of the sadness of it, like people just working, and then, you know, going out for drinks on the kind of weekend or whatever. That was kind of their thing. And you know, you just look at so many of the people and they just seem so unhealthy, so unhappy, and like they're just hiding themselves behind all these kind of things, you know, like hair dyes, these crazy hairstyles and crazy clothes, or just like fighting every day for like life or whatever. And you know, just coming back home just made me, it didn't feel like home. I didn't feel like, it feels weird coming back here. Like I felt more at home in there than I did here, and that's kind of crazy to me. And it just makes me want to go overseas somewhere different, or even back there as soon as possible, because it just doesn't feel right here anymore. And maybe it's because it's Victoria, you know, like it's quite cold here. It's not the nicest place to kind of be weather-wise, and then a lot of the culture in Australia and like just the money and just working, it's really not really appetizing to me. And I think a lot of Western cultures kind of they're just like all this kind of working stuff, whereas like these poorer countries, they're just like so much happier, you know, like it's cheaper there, but then in comparison to their wages, it's kind of the same kind of thing. But they just seem kind of happy and like nice lifestyle. And you know, with the training, I felt like that was important for me to not just go there, because I would have just gone into my shell and just like kind of stayed kind of close where I felt safe, but then having to go out to see other people, to do the training, which was like kind of really satisfying. You know, there's a certain satisfaction to being able to use your body, but also like getting out, having to get out, and you know, in that environment, like as I was saying about like the processed foods and that, like sure they had processed foods there, but it wasn't as good. Like I had some of their like local kind of snack stuff, and like it was more filling, it was more satisfying. It wasn't just like Western kind of stuff. You go into like the supermarket here, and fuck, like there's so much processed shit, and then you eat some of it, and it doesn't make you feel satisfied. So then you want more, and then you want more. Like it's just like really addictive and really kind of sad. And it's like no wonder we have so many people that are like borderline kind of depressed, or like lonely, or just obese and unhealthy and all that kind of stuff. Not even obese, just like bulimic, you know, anxiety and all this kind of stuff, you know. And it's kind of sad to see, and it doesn't really make me proud to be like this white Australian. Like even just coming from Bali, from back, like finishing my stay at Bali and then going to the airport, and then just seeing like all these kind of white people around, it just like, it kind of like depressed me a little bit. Not depressed me, but just kind of like, oh, this fucking like bullshit kind of stuff and that. And you know, like I did enjoy my stay there. The food where I was staying was really nice. You know, they had lots of local produce that was just there, and I had like nasi goreng, and then in the mornings a smoothie bowl, which was like so good. I just love that, and it was like $7 or $8. It's just crazy, like how cheap that was. Like, it just put into perspective for me, like there's other places where you can be living so much more cheaper and easily. But because like these places are more like populated and more popular, you know, there's more things to do here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better, because you look at the people that live here and they're not as happy. I don't think they are. And I certainly don't feel as happy here as I did over there. And don't get me wrong, like I felt isolated at times, I felt down at times, I felt a little bit sad and separate at times. And I think that's partly because I was by myself and I didn't know anyone over there. But as I said, luckily I had like the martial arts to go there and be doing something. I think that was really important for me. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I want to add to this kind of thing that I've been talking about, this Bali trip. Yeah, it was just nice to experience something different and to get out and to be in an environment where it was easier to be healthier, it was easy to spend time on myself, and you know, every day I just tried to go out and do something new. Like one day I went to see the monkeys, another day I went to like a Hindu temple, another day I just went on like a walk to see where things were. And oh my god, as soon as I went there, it was just like crazy, like the traffic there and all the scooters and stuff, like, and like the roads are so much smaller, like it's literally 2 cars across, like that's how big the roads are, just like 2 cars across, and there's scooters just like going around up in the paths and like beeping to like get people out of the way, and like beeping because this person hasn't turned quite enough or whatever. But like it kind of works for them. They didn't really use indicators that much, but it just worked because I didn't see any crashes, which was amazing to me, because like it was as busy as Melbourne, but like they were all kind of weaving in between each other, going across this way, half in between the lines, and then going across. If there was no incoming traffic, then they'd go around and go up. But then if they did see incoming traffic come, then they'd try and sneak across just before or get into like a gap or whatever. And it was kind of amazing to see that and experience that as well. Yeah, so I think that's most of what I wanted to share with my experience in Bali, and just kind of my reflections on coming back. Yeah, I think for me, especially in an environment is like kind of has a big impact. Like the people that you're around, what kind of place you're in, you know, what it kind of looks like, how it feels. And just like the bamboo, like where I stayed, it was just like bamboo mostly house, and like these kind of shelter and these nice tables, and you know, good food there. There's a pool there and you could just sit out in the sun and read, or yeah, it was a good experience. I enjoyed it, and I would recommend going to Bali, definitely. Yeah, I think that's all I kind of wanted to gasbag about in this video. Sorry if it felt a bit scattered, because I haven't been doing this for a while, but through practice, you know, it'll get better. And thank you for watching if you did end up watching it. I'm not sure if it was that interesting or very beneficial or made much sense, but I think that's more important for me, to be making conversation in this kind of way, which is more natural, and trying to find my way in and make things make sense in my own head, rather than have like a script to follow, or like really wording out my things to make it sound perfect or whatever. Because when it comes to reality, you know, oh my god, social media, that's a whole other topic to go on in another video. So thank you for watching, and I hope you're having a good day. And if you're not, then best of luck. And I'll see you in the next video.